8:12, welcome back. We are continuing now with our week-long discussion on the death penalty, taking an in-depth look at the details of the laws here in Connecticut. And this morning we're listening to both sides of this hot-button topic. I am joined by Sacred Heart University professor Chris DeSanctis is here also, and he is for the death penalty, along with criminal defense attorney Norm Pattis, who is against it. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on the program. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Norm, let me start with you. And the reason this topic is now hot again is because of the Joshua Komisarjevsky trial and, of course, what happened in Cheshire. And a lot of people say, boy, you know, here's a case that really calls for the death penalty. You've got these two animals, really, that Governor John Rowland called them yesterday, saying that they broke into this house. They killed these three people. One of them raped an 11-year-old girl. They beat Dr. Pettit. Why not have the death penalty, at least for this situation?
Lawyers often say that hard cases make bad law. This is the case if we're going to have a death penalty to have it. What they've done are beyond the pale and can't be forgiven. I don't know that I'd go so far as John Rowland calling them animals. But the death penalty, in my view, accomplishes nothing. It feels so good to hate these men. I think the real critical question is why do we enjoy the specter of hatred so much? Why this great desire to kill? When I see Edith Prague, for example, a well-respected senator, publicly state that this man should be hung by his private parts off a public square, the public discourse is cheapened. These men are a threat to society. They should be incarcerated and locked away. But killing them gives the state a power I don't think the state should have. That is the power to kill its own citizens.
Why are you for it? What's the reason?
Well, there are several reasons. You know, certainly I believe the death penalty is a deterrent for several reasons. Look, people fear death. They don't fear life. Life is valued more than death. That is just a truth. And when it comes to the death penalty, capital offenders never plea bargain for the death penalty. They plea bargain for life because they fear death. And that just gives credence to the 27 studies that are out there that prove that for every one person executed, there are between 3 and 18 innocent lives saved.
You know, Chris, you hear about the deterrent argument, and I wonder, because Massachusetts doesn't have a death penalty, and I think Rhode Island doesn't, and New York and New Jersey, and all these two men could have done really is just committed the crime in another state. So what do you say to something like that? Does it really deter crime?
Well, look, the University of Colorado came out with a study that showed for every one person executed, 5 innocent lives are saved. The University of Houston came out with a study that showed that the Illinois moratorium in 2000 caused an additional 150 innocent lives being taken 4 years following. There was a study out of Emory University that showed for every one person executed, there are on average 18 innocent lives saved. Now, you're never going to have a complete agreement on the exact numbers of lives that are saved, but there is, without a doubt, an agreement that there is a deterrent effect, both based on human nature and the way we respond to penalties and from these studies.
You know, the problem with that argument is it makes no sense. You can do anything with statistics. I mean, we're all equal, presumably at some level, although the statistics suggest otherwise. But here's the issue. The United States incarcerates more per capita than any other nation on earth. It's shockingly amount more for a greater period of time. We call ourselves the land of the free. We've got the highest prison population and longer prison terms than elsewhere. And guess what? We're one of the few countries with a death penalty. So this massive deterrent effect, the notion that somehow for every life you kill or end by violence, you save others, it just doesn't make any sense. We've got a death penalty, the master penalty of all. It should be sending some broad deterrent message. It's not, because we've got the highest incarceration rate on the face of the earth. What's more, I've met several of the men on death row, represented them in various contexts. These guys typically don't sit back and make rational calculations about who they're going to kill and what the deterrent effect is going to be of social policy and what's to be gained. They're crimes of passion. They're crimes often driven by mental illness, by drug addiction. These aren't the sort of things where rational actors sit back and say, gee, I wonder what some statistician at University of Houston says.
Another argument is cost. A lot of people say that, well, it costs more to have these people on death row than just sentence them to life because of the attorneys and the appeals, and they tend to really stay alive. Oftentimes these people stay in life. They die in jail even though they've been sentenced to death.
Sure, but where I think we are wrong, and when we say the death penalty costs, the death penalty doesn't cost. If you want to save the state money in these dire economic times, reform the appeals process. It's the appeals process that costs. Connecticut has offers an unlimited amount of appeals to capital offenders. And they also, they stay on death row, they continue to appeal, and this costs the state money. It's not the death penalty, it's the appeals process. Look at Muhammad in Virginia, the sniper case from the Washington, D.C. He was handed down a capital offense verdict, and within 6 or 7 years, he was put to death after his appeals were exhausted. Connecticut should have a similar process, one that's fair, one that allows for appeals, but it's limited. And it's really the appeals process that
it's simply
money.
untrue.
Let me give you a chance after the commercial break, because we've got to take a quick break, and then we'll let you respond to that, and whether the death penalty doesn't necessarily cost more, it's just the appeals process, and if you need to change something, maybe that's what needs to be changed. So, Norm, we'll give you a chance on that one. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.